All right, good morning. Welcome back here to Trader Minute. Great to have you aboard. Happy 2019 to you, and great to have you. And markets getting off to a very interesting start here this year. Where S&P futures are down 40 points, 38 points now, but they have fallen substantially. They've fallen about 60 points off of their highs, and we are looking at a market set to open up squarely in the red. Now, I have a 1-hour chart of S&P futures up here. And, while, yes, the market's set to gap down 40 points, you can see it's still, 170 points off its lows, or 150 points off its lows that we saw last Monday, right? So, we're talking about a market where the pace or the magnitude of movements are still very substantial. And this move is lighter than many of the other moves that we have seen. We have seen the market move 40, 50 points in less than an hour. So a 40, 50 point gap. That's actually, relatively calm compared to some of the price action that we've seen. Now, it's one that is data driven. In fact, last night we saw S&P futures open up, and they actually opened higher. We saw the rally come in right at the last minutes here on Friday. The last 2 minutes, we saw the market jump, about 25 points, which, not unheard of. A lot of times it's more down. We did see the down kind of come in the prior 15 minutes. That was erased in the last 2 minutes, but overall, not a huge magnitude of change and nothing that I find to be overly significant. But then we saw S&P futures gap up last night and, trading on higher, and then we started to see them really start to roll over. And, what caused this rollover? Well, data out of China. This is one where, this morning's move, this is data driven. This is data out of China. We saw things get a little worse on S&P futures when Europe opened up. They've come off their lows significantly, over 20 points off their lows. But in this market, okay, great. But overall, that's the environment the market's waking up to here this morning. And it's not really much of a change in the environment. The VIX is set to gap higher. We're going to see option prices continue to stay heavily priced, though hopefully with the new year, with some of the holidays behind us, we see them come back into at least normal ranges. Would be really nice to see. But there's some groups that there are some groups that are really set to take it on the chin here this morning. For example, the financials, things like Bank of America, J.P. Morgan, both set to gap down, significantly here this morning. We saw Wells Fargo with a small upgrade, but nothing all that significant there for them. We're going to see healthcare sell off here this morning. That's one of the bigger losers here early on. It's going to be very interesting open here to 2019. Now, if we come in and we look at the SPY and we look at the beginning of years, right? And we go back and we say, well, okay, what was 2017? What was 2017 like when it opened up? And we could go back and do this for every year. But, a lot of times we have seen a gap come into play, and the gap really be significant for the early direction during the year for the market. Last year, here was the gap, right? It was a gap higher, a sizable gap higher, big gap higher, right? And then you can see throughout the day, traded on lower, traded on higher, but really kind of set the tone for some higher throughout the beginning of the year. If we go back, we just kind of go back in time, we can see these kind of play out, and I'm not going to show them all to you. They're easy to go back and find if you want to look at them. But the bottom line is the tendency has been for the gap to be significant as far as for the overall trend of the year, to the way that the year is going to start out. And if we look at, we can see the last 2 years. Here we have beginning of 2016, and you can see the gap down, right? Or the 2017, you can see the gap down, and yeah, the market held up that day, and held up a little the next day, but overall, path of least resistance was lower. And, a lot of times the first day of the year, we're going to get a lot of chop. It's not going to be all that significant in terms of what happens after the market opens. But that gap has been significant and been telling in terms of which way the trend is going to go overall to start the year. And so I look at this morning's action, and given the overall context of the market, we can see whipsaws, and we can see it not have a lot of significance. But given what we tend to see, I have to look at this open with a little bit of a bearish light, with a little bit of a, hey, market might be in for a little bit more selling here. We talked last week about the nature of this rally right here, and these two huge 100-point rallies in the S&P. And how when we see those typically aren't bottoming signs. They're typically not, hey, the selling is over. They are typically, we're in the middle of a bear market. That's when you tend to see magnitudes of that size. And so, it's one where we're waking up. Conditions aren't all that different. And we're going to see the bears kind of take things at least early on, here this morning. Now, I'm not planning on making an entry right at the open, but as things kind of shake out, as we see some of the charting shake out a little bit, I will go out and hopefully, have some, get 2019 off here to a great start. As you know, I'm anxious to get going, but I want something that is, squarely odds in my favor, with the way that options are priced out there in the market. One spot that may be overlooked a little bit today with the market gapping down is the casino space. The Las Vegas Sands, Wynn Resorts, and you can see these are set to gap down. They're not going to, on a 40-point gap down, they're not going to be rescued. But these are stocks that, they have a very positive catalyst with some of their Macau revenue data being reported here this morning, showing some strong year-over-year growth. And so, continued positives within this space. It's been a space that's kind of been thrown out, but it has been rather positive. So very, very, very interested to see how that dynamic plays out here, today. But most things, I think you have to be very wary of the gaps. And you really have to mind the gaps here this morning. And things like Nike, which I'm bullish on. Nice little snapback move, but sizable gap down, significant gap down here this morning. These have been the type of gaps after we've had these rallies. When we've had these gap downs, we've tended to see some early buying come in and then them fade into the close. We have seen that many times, and I would not be surprised to see a similar element, really take place here today. But overall, the amount of differentiation is going to diminish with this size of a gap. We're not going to see a ton of differentiation on the open. We may start to see some differentiation as things play out a little bit this morning. As they shape up, we've seen some numbers out of Tesla this morning, a lot of analyst commentary. This thing's going back to 300 this morning, and, it's one of those where a lot of these kind of rebound rallies look like they're going to get sold into aggressively, and we're going to be in a position where the market's going to be saying, all right, Bank of America gapping down to 24. All right, are we talking about a higher low coming in or the next leg down coming in? And I think that's going to be one of the big questions for market participants today. And one of the things I'll be looking at and saying, okay, you know what, is there something here, or is this something where we may need a little bit more to play out. But I do suspect that some of the odds are going to be very very telling here as the day plays out today, and that we will ultimately see that some of these rebounds that we saw last week just aren't going to hold the water that they typically would. All right. Alrighty, I'll be on a little bit later here throughout the day. We'll talk about some of the market action, but as I talked about on Monday, also have a lot of content prepared here for 2019, and throughout the course of this week and next, we'll start delivering that and start going through all of that. And very much looking forward to it, and we'll be trading around that as the trade setups come in. So give me the first couple hours here this morning, kind of get the tone, get the market here, and then I'll be jumping on video. We'll talk about a few of the things out there. Probably start building into some of the watch list, and hopefully into a trade setup there for us. Thanks for hopping on. Have yourselves a great one, and we'll talk to you later. Take care.